Everybody underestimates the kick in the groin.
Can you run SCUM? It's a new game that's been released on PC, and if you wanted to run it, you could easily just go down to the worst part of your neighborhood where you live. You'd probably find some. But if you want to build a PC that can run this title, hopefully at 1080p, I don't know yet because I haven't tried the components, then this may be the right video for you. We've got a nice blend here of used and new parts mixed together that's coming in at a total price point of $327 US, or if you're in Australia, 445 Aussie. Now going through the components, first up we have the RX 570. We picked this up for $150. Then we've got the case. Budget case here, got this for 30 Aussie. We'll quickly give this a bash run. And it's cheap, it's flimsy, but hopefully it gets the job done. Moving through the list, we have the VS350 from Corsair. Budget power supply, it should be all we need, since the minimum requirements of this game state that you need an i5 4430 or an FX 6300. Now we're using a G4560, which is a dual-core 4-threaded CPU. However, the IPC and the clock speeds are much greater than that of an i5 4430. So hopefully we should get away with that. We've got 8 GB of DDR4 memory, a H110 motherboard. Now we picked these up, the G4560. You can still get this for around about $64 US or 78 Australian dollars. It's original asking price, and it does come with a CPU cooler. Now the benefit of going with this is that these motherboards, the H110s, they've been forsaken, they've been forgotten. And so we picked this up for nothing, but you probably couldn't expect to get that for nothing because the person thought it was broken. But if you want to pick one up, you can get them on eBay for like under $40 US, in Australia around about 50 AUD. But continuing on with the list, DDR4 memory. I know it's expensive. I picked some of this stuff up, 2 mismatched sticks for 60 Aussie dollars, about 42 USD. But even if you picked it up at asking price for a brand new kit, it would still make this build worthwhile, since graphics cards, especially this one in particular, have come down in prices quite a lot. Hard drive. I picked this out of a build, an OEM build. It's a 1 terabyte Seagate drive. I got this for about 20 Aussie dollars, or in USD terms, 14 US. Now using a used hard drive in a build like this is not a problem, since we're going with a budget 120GB SSD. This will be able to hold our game on it, which is SCUM, and also be able to boot up our computer quickly, as well as making things snappy. So even if this hard drive's slow, this will counteract that big time. And in 2018, I just can't live without SSDs. So we're coming in with a whole build cost that is definitely one that's kept on a budget, but since we've used parts, we do have to give them a bit of a tech yes cleanse. So we're going to quickly get on with the build, and then after that install SCUM, which you can pick up for $20 US. So let's get this party started. So we just finished the Tech Yes cleanse, in particular on this graphics card and also on the motherboard itself. They're both looking pretty much brand new now to match the rest of the build. And since this case doesn't have any fans in it, we're actually gonna add in 2 really cheap rainbow fans. They're not even really RGB because they just got preset different colors on them. And hopefully it turns out all well, but let's get this build underway. And here we are now at conclusion time, and this PC was able to play SCUM not really that well at 1080p, but more so at 720p. This game really shocked me at how much VRAM it can utilize, even on lower settings. 720p, we're getting close to using up all the 4 gigabytes of VRAM available on the RX 570. Now keep in mind, this was with custom settings, but even putting those settings on low, this game was so hungry for that VRAM. Not only that, it was also hungry for the graphical processing power too. So at 1080p, we're getting just over 40 frames per second, hovering between 40 and 50 most of the time, but the stuttering was so bad. This is what made the game really not that enjoyable. But when we closed it down to 720p, this is where things became really exciting. The game is beautiful, note that. If you do wish to get a really high-end PC, then this game will definitely deliver in terms of how it looks. Think of it as like a PUBG, but more optimized and better looking, but also much more hungrier in what it needs for its specs in order to run well. So 720p, we're getting over 80 FPS with the G4560. The 2-core, 4-thread CPU is absolutely fine for this game in my opinion. And when we dropped it down 720p, was using up less actual system memory as well, near half that of what it was using at 1080p. Now, ironically enough, I didn't realize that one of these sticks was actually an 8GB stick, so we had 12 gigabytes of DDR4 memory in this build. So 720p with SCUM, you will run around 6 gigabytes of RAM at least, and then if you go up to 1080p, you'll want around 12 gigabytes of RAM. So I think the RAM was just within spec, but of course, as we look at the graphics card, the VRAM and the actual processing of the graphics card itself, this game definitely needs that power. So I was really surprised that the RX 570 was having trouble at 1080p running this game, which it was, because as we just said before, 720p, the G4560 was getting over 80 FPS a lot of the times, and it was a lot smoother as well. So the massive stuttering that was there at higher resolutions wasn't there at lower resolutions, which means that the graphics card was actually bottlenecking this setup. So there it all is. It seems like it's a pretty well-made game. I was definitely enjoying it once I got the hang of it. You have to run around, you've got to feed yourself, you've got to stay hydrated. I do recommend starting off getting your person to have max boxing skills. That's when things got really exciting for me. I started going punching on with these zombies, and I started to get good at it. So before that, I was sort of having a bit of trouble, but regardless, it was a bit of fun. I can see the appeal of this game, and especially if you jump into the multiplayer, you're going to be having a lot of fun with SCUM. But as for the CPU utilization itself, it seemed like the core utilization across all 4 threads was pretty much equal, and when we stepped it down to the 720p resolution, we saw it was going near 100% on all threads a lot of the time. Just that it's a very demanding title. But ultimately, this little SCUM PC here, it's little, it can handle the game, and it does look pretty good, and it does run pretty quiet. In terms of power consumption, when we overclocked the graphics card just a little bit to get more performance out of it, it was using about 250 watts from the wall. So the VS350 is absolutely fine for a little build like this, and even if we stepped it up to a 4-core, for example, this power supply would still be able to handle that. So ultimately, I'm happy with the way the builds ended up, but also stay tuned for another video where we'll take a look at the G4560 and see what it can still do in 2018. Because when it's come to gaming, I haven't had any problems with this 2-core 4-threaded CPU, especially coupled with mid-range graphics cards, which I feel a lot of people are going to be doing when it comes to the CPU and GPU combination. Anyway, with all that aside, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, then be sure to hit that like button. Let us know in the comments section below, have you tried out SCUM? If so, what was your experience and what were your thoughts and opinions? If not, let me know what's stopping you from playing it. It isn't too expensive. I think at $20 US, it's coming at a really good price point. And also one thing as well, I did have to update the BIOS before I could use the G4560 because technically it is a 7th gen CPU and this is a 6th gen motherboard. But after that, everything ran absolutely fine. And with all that aside, I'll put some links in the description below if you wish to search for similar parts to make a similar build. And I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now. Bye.